Big question here on Wednesday, ripped straight from the Morning Kick Around Discord server. Of course, you can gain access to the Morning Kick Around Discord server by becoming a member of the channel. So the big question from there, are we more excited about where USL or MLS will be in 10 years? Now, that's a big one because, as we said in the last segment, there's a lot of muddled allegiances, a lot of plans, and details maybe are a little bit fleeting at this point. We talked last week with the commissioner of Midwest Premier League and kind of came to the conclusion we're in the germination state of this next phase of American soccer. But as we sit here now, in our heart of hearts, are we more excited for where we will be in a decade with USL or Major League Soccer?
Well, okay, I think this is about ceiling, right? Like what's the available space between where the league is now and where they could be in 10 years, right? And Major League Soccer over the last, especially 15 years, has taken some major steps, some massive steps forward. I mean, that's stadium building, that's successful expansion teams, that's big name signings, that's developing players. Like all those things have happened for MLS. You know, whether they have happened in the right way or fast enough for you, that's for you to decide. But I think it's very obvious MLS has made big leaps forward in the last 10 or 15 years. But it's kind of hard to imagine, you know, short of them doing something we don't necessarily see coming, which is taking all of the guardrails off on spending, Rob, right? Unless they do that. And obviously, look, we do have in play, and something you have to consider, whether or not you think the calendar switch is a fundamental shift for the better for MLS, or maybe for the worse. Right? That's a thing, right? MLS 4.0 or whatever Don Garber's calling it, right? What is that? Is it 3.0 or 4.0? I can't remember where we are.
Well, it's getting a little conflated because I proposed that we were heading into, as a country, into American Soccer 4.0, right at the same time Garber said they were heading into 3.0 as a league.
Right, okay, so 3.0, yeah, American Soccer 4.0, MLS 3.0, who knows? It's an operating system situation. MLS 3.0, what do you imagine that to be? That's part of the consideration as to whether you could be more excited about MLS or USL. But for me, the ceiling is so much higher for USL. Now, it's fraught. It's a little bit dangerous, some of the things that they're doing. It's possible USL gets a little bit out over its skis. And okay, fair enough from Andrew that a lot of what we're talking about with USL is hypothetical.
Yep.
Right. So the pro rel thing, it's still hypothetical until they institute a plan and say, this is what we're doing. And now we're playing games. And at some point in the near future, we want to spend some time with a very good article that was written by Ryan Hodek at quailcitysoccer.com that he outlines where the USL teams are in relation to their potential to be D1 clubs, right? Relative to where the PLS situation is, right? Stadium capacity, metro population, those kind of things. So that's fascinating, right? We're talking about whether or not USL can get there. It's all sort of like best laid plan situation. But still, for me, even with a lot of that being uncertain, even with there being no clarity yet on what the pro rel plan is going to be or what the USL D1 population will be in terms of clubs, man, I still think I'm more excited for USL, maybe because it's more uncharted. Whereas MLS is going to be exploring parts of their already mapped out. It's not mapped out, but exploring new places in what they've already done. USL is going to be, basically going to the moon. It's possible that they're going to the moon, Rob.
Yeah, Major League Soccer, to your point, over the last 15 years went from non-existent in the world's economy of players coming and going, and now we just talked about it today, multiple players coming and going in and out of Major League Soccer across the world. So that's huge in general, and that only seems to be expanding. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just that thing of MLS, because of when it launched, how it launched, the competition it was facing for hearts and minds, the money situation, again, lots of things rub people the wrong way when it comes to MLS because of the money it takes to enter that league, right? It doesn't feel like it's community-based, it's for the people, that kind of stuff. In a lot of cases, some people would disagree, and obviously clubs like Andrew's Columbus Crew have been around for 30 years. That's a different kind of vibe around that team. But people don't like that, right? But that's big markets, big stadiums, glitz and glamour, big names, all that stuff. What we as a soccer country really need to meet our potential, and we do need that. Don't get me wrong, we need that. But what we really need to meet our potential is what I talk about all the time, which is dotting the map, right? And MLS isn't going to dot the map too much more. Now, Sacramento hopes they get to 32 because they need at least one more spot, or at least a couple more spots for Sacramento to get in. But if we're talking about cities that are already on the outside looking in when it comes to MLS because that league is built out, that's where the growth potential is. Right? That's the second layer. And now again, D1, whatever you want to call it. I don't even care necessarily about that. And I'm not in this for the fight between the leagues. And maybe you could argue that that's a thing, right? Everybody wants to say MLS should be scared of USL. Sure, you can make that argument, I guess, but I think MLS is fine in what it's already established. What I'm fascinated by is USL giving cities that are below the MLS threshold when it comes to metropolitan population and stadium building an opportunity to have high level professional soccer in this country because we need that.
This conversation brings me back to when I talked to Sean Mann right after these the USL Pro Rel announcements and all that happened. Is both MLS and USL sitting here now realizing that they aren't fully capturing the rising American enthusiasm in the sport in general, and so MLS is attempting to try to capture more of that with added expansion, maybe this calendar change. Will that capture more eyeballs? USL, they realized they were kind of doing the same thing over and over again, competing at the second and third levels. So they think that adding the Pro Rel and a top tier would get more eyeballs. So both are essentially trying to do the same thing, trying to capture more of the American soccer interest in the sport. Which one of theirs will be successful, we shall see. But there is a lot of hypothetical plans. I mean, the calendar change, I think, was first proposed by USL like 4 or 5 years ago. And then that shifted over to now Major League Soccer is more interested in that. So until something actually happens, we can't necessarily, this is a hard one to roadmap potentially. But so to answer the specific question, my opinion, if these hypothetical plans that are in now, USL to me is more exciting. If it is, there's 3 divisions. There's a roadmap for amateur teams to join the bottom of the table. There's teams earning their way up or down. And there is teams across the entirety of the United States all working for that same championship. Yeah. That is more exciting to me. But eventually, I'd love in 10 years if there was both combined. That would be really exciting. Of course.
But and look, if the only universe in which that happens is one in which the USL makes a case as a business, as a league, as maybe a multiple divisions, that it would be better for MLS to be connected to them than not. Right now, that also is a world maybe where MLS buys USL, which we talked about as maybe that was already the positioning that USL was engaged in when they talked about doing these things. Now, if you want to wear a cynical hat, you could see it that way. Maybe it's just a play to position themselves to get bought out. There are some people who may not like that idea, who may not be on board with that. Now, if you want everything to be connected, MLS probably is going to have to own USL. They're probably going to have to gobble them up. But is that ultimately good for USL clubs and the communities that USL has created and the growth of those leagues at that level? Because MLS would maybe change their approach to that, even if they did connect a little bit and say, all right, well, we got Pro Rel. And would that end be worth, would that justify the means of the process? Like, is that what you want? MLS to be dominant atop a multi-tiered promotion relegation system in America? Because I just don't see any way for anybody else to organize it. U.S. soccer doesn't have the power and really can't because of the laws.
Yeah, I'm curious if what kind of business arrangement could be made outside of there just being an outright purchase and merger. Like, is there an alternative to that somehow out there in the ether?
There probably is some creative way to allow clubs from USL or whatever you're calling it from a second division to go up to whatever MLS is, right? At that point, I suppose there's a creative way to do it. You're just kind of making things up, right? You're just now, again, I'll go back to what Peter Wilt wrote in his manifesto that I talked about. Now that manifesto is 9 years old or whatever it is at this point. It's not new, and things have changed dramatically. And lots of the cities and things that he was talking about have already been populated by clubs, and things have changed in terms of the league landscape and all of that. But He said, you know, you want this to happen? Then all of those MLS clubs need, or USL clubs rather, need to be part of the MLS single entity. That every owner of USL, if you want to connect the leagues, needs to be bought into the single entity of MLS. Because then everybody's on board in the same pool, right? And then it's operating rights. It's not pure ownership, which again, if we talk about semantics and the way people feel about that in this country, a lot of people would not like that. But that's probably the simplest way for those things to happen. And if that happens, well, then we don't have to make a choice here, MLS or USL. I don't see it that way, though. And again, maybe just because it's the newness factor for the cities that don't have teams or don't have stadiums. When we see Pittsburgh and what they're planning, when we see Sacramento and what they're planning, we see Boise and what they're planning, that gets me excited.
What is there, like 40 to 50 USL teams as is right now? I mean, if Don Garber, I mean, he loves his expansion fees. If there's some sort of a deal where every single one of those USL teams has to pay like some sort of an expansion fee, that I could just see the dollar signs just like rolling in his eyeballs with the prospect.
Yeah, but that's
of
a barrier. That's a barrier to entry. So you're not going to add those teams one at a time. It doesn't make any sense to add them one at a time. It would have to be a complete and total purchase, or maybe give clubs the opportunity to break away if they don't want to be part of it. But why would MLS get into business or buy USL if those USL teams are paying I mean, I guess if you create a second division and you say, okay, your expansion fee is $5 million or $10 million or whatever, but I can't imagine a high barrier being good in that regard.
No,
Unless
but
it's just
some
about
way to make some money.
competition. Yeah, but okay. But again, at that point, I don't think MLS, maybe, but MLS at that point isn't going to be asking USL teams for the same expansion fees that San Diego is paying to get into MLS right now.
This might be a topic for another day, but one thing I was just thinking is for MLS and USL, I think that with soccer kind of being accepted more generally, and with the kind of the fracturing of collegiate sports, maybe this is the opportunity for both leagues in general and just for the sport in general to just be a way to represent local pride, local city community pride, sport outside of soccer in general, just like be the place where people can plant their flag for their community in general. I think
we talked about that. We did that's exactly what we talked about on the show recently, and when we talk about Portland and the Hearts of Pine, what is it that's made them successful? It's still early for them, right? Will Portland Hearts of Pine stand the test of time is a question. I'm not trying to say they won't. You have to allow for the possibility. But the reason they've been successful is because it connected with their community in a way that feels authentic, that feels real, that isn't about, some multi-billionaire coming in and wanting a plaything or using public dollars to build a stadium or whatever it is. Like that, those things are important. And so if the question is, does a place like Portland need to be connected to a higher level of soccer, have an opportunity to be promoted into a higher level when, very few teams every season will be able to do that. So it's always difficult. Do they need that opportunity for this to be legitimate for them? Or can Portland Hearts of Pine continue to exist for decades and decades to come where they are with nothing changing about their potential league?
Thank you to the Discord server for providing us that question and got us talking onto this topic. Thank you so much. If you guys want to get in the mix of that conversation on the Morning Kick Around Discord server, there's threads on local soccer, USL, Major League Soccer, the national team, and just general topics. Become a channel member. $3.99 makes you an MK Ultra. You get priority commenting on these live shows. You get early access to bonus content. And like I said, Morning Kick Around Discord server access. If you just want to help the show without a cost in the world, just hit the subscribe button and it helps us out considerably. You can follow along on social media at MKickaround on X, Instagram, Blue Sky. And you can write us a note to our email. We would like to see those morningkickaround@gmail.com. Thank you to everyone who sent that in. And if you'd like to support outside of YouTube, coffee.com/morningkickaround. All right, you got anything before we head out tonight? Lots of soccer on the TV tonight.
Yep, I'm going to be checking out some Wednesday night soccer, and we'll have an opportunity to talk more about all these things and these great stories, and maybe San Francisco and Des Moines and whatever else is next, Friday and beyond.
All right, see you Friday, and until then, Everybody, enjoy your soccer.